I'm Nancy Newhart. I'm the curator for the Allegheny Highlands Arts and Crafts Center. We're here with Chuck Almarez and Jeff Bartley to celebrate the first exhibit of 2023. Chuck's exhibit is called The Last Picture Show, and Jeff's is called Memory Made Tangible, and we'll be speaking with both artists today. The show runs from today through March 3rd. The center is open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 to 4:30. I hope everyone will get a chance to come and see these two very different ways of taking photographs and manipulating them. Chuck, tell me a little bit about Moonrise, Sierra Vista, Arizona, because I know that's an early favorite.
It is. It's an early favorite, and it's, as I mentioned in the description, it's just the tip of the hat to Ansel Adams and his Moonrise, Hernandez, New Mexico, because that's at a point in time when I was studying a lot of Ansel Adams photographs and Edward Weston, and this was in Sierra Vista, Arizona, taken in 1974, I believe it was, and I'm using a 4x5 view camera, Tri-X film, and this is, it's large format, and everything at that point was normal until I got into digital photography. I scanned the negative and then got the darkness of the sky, which Ansel Adams did chemically, but this was done digitally. And everything seemed to fall into place, except in the original there was no moon there. And I don't hesitate at all to say that I put the moon in that picture exactly where I wanted it.
I know you're very open about the fact that you like doing post-process work and manipulating things, which just amazes me because I have trouble enough getting a decent photo to start with, but to layer 3 or 4 images together. So why don't we talk for a minute about Ascension?
Sure. Ascension's much more recent photograph, probably no more than about 5 years old. And this is a reflection on the surface of a pond at my friend's farm in Botetourt County. And the interesting thing about it is because it's a reflection, instead of the leaves being on the pond, they look like they're up in the sky. And what looks like stars around here is actually pond scum. And the image is not sharp because of the water ripples. But I love the way things just kind of ascended, which is why I call it Ascension. And everything is just the opposite of really what you see here.
A lot of these have a really sort of fantasy / sci-fi illustrative character to them, and I know that you talk in a lot of the labels, and I encourage people to read the labels because the stories are great. When you talk about the light layering process and building these images ground up, explain that to me.
Okay, so in this particular image, I had a real nice shot of Lake Mumau, and the mountains, the lake, everything looked really nice, but it was very traditional. And I wanted something else, and it was obviously toward nightfall and sunset there, and I decided I would put a little bit more into it. So I looked up some old photographs that I had. The inside of this vehicle here is actually a truck on Glenn's farm in Botetourt. And of course, looking through the windows, there was nothing like this there. So I basically cut out the windows in the truck picture, put the truck interior over that. Now you see the scene in the background coming through the windows. And that was part of a story, but it was starting to build a little bit. And these things take weeks to actually come together, not technically, but to decide what to do and make it a story. So I figured we needed somebody inside the vehicle that would make it more interesting. So I just took a hand, and the hand was interesting, but I decided I'd add a cigar, make it more masculine sort of thing. And then, of course, the cigar needed little drifts of smoke up here, and that's from an incense stick as the smoke. And it was almost coming together, and I called it Last Sunset, which seemed kind of, I don't know, just kind of final. And I figured, what is he doing parked there in Lake Mumau? It's a favorite spot for him and his wife. And I added the wedding rings right there. So it's his last sunset. But people often ask, is this like a suicide picture? No, it's just a way for him to remember what it was like.
It's a sentimental memory.
It's a sentimental memory, yeah.
But when you talk about cutting out the truck, remember that I'm not a photographer, so it's not a literal cutting out of the truck. You're doing that
It's digitally.
Yeah. in the processing.
Yeah, And so the interior of the truck, of course, there was much more to it when I took the initial picture, but I just wanted the windscreen, or rather the windshield up here, cut out the image that was in the windshield of the original image, and that allowed the background to show through. This image is called Transition, and it's obviously a picture of an older gentleman walking through the arch toward the light behind it, and his dog waiting there for him. And it started off with the picture of the arch, which we took in Scotland a few years ago when we were there. And the arch was pretty interesting just by design and the way it looked, and by its size. It was really quite large. But it seemed, as it was attached to the building, it seemed fairly static, and there wasn't a whole lot going on for it. But I thought if I took the arch and put it in a different setting and made more of a story out of it, it could be very interesting, which it did. So the arch is what started off. I took a picture of the clouds, totally separate location, gave them some color and some contrast, added the lighting behind it and also the light streaks that are coming down this way, and some fencing. You can't just walk into this place, you have to go through the gate. And sort of at the last minute, I added the dog. And that was very interesting because the very first time I showed this print at a show in Lexington, a lady walked up to me and said, "I bought your print." And she said, "I'm the dog." And I said, "What do you mean you're the dog?" It turns out that her live-in boyfriend, and they were an older couple, her live-in boyfriend was dying, and he was in a lot of pain. But he was at home with her, and one night they were sitting on the couch, and his head was on her lap, and he was breathing real rough, and she knew that he was just getting to that point. And she said, "You can go, it's okay, I'll be fine." And he opened his eyes real suddenly, and he looked at me, she said, and he said, "Will you come with me?" And I was shocked. She said, "I just didn't know what to say." And I said, "No, I'm just not ready." And then she pointed to the picture, she said, "That's me, I'm the dog." This image is a composite, sort of. It's really digital painting more than anything, but it started off with a picture of Flag Rock, which lies between Clifton Forge and Iron Gate. And the flag is always something special people see when they come back to town. And this particular flag, I believe, is the one that I followed a couple of young ladies up there to put it up. I took pictures of them putting the flag up. And years later, I went back and looked at the print. I made several copies of it. Looked at the print and was working on a technique that allowed me to layer one image on top of another and make it blend in. And that's exactly what happened right here. So I had a picture of the flag, and I used Flag Rock as the background, and I blended that image of the flag into Flag Rock. And it looks just like it's painted on there, but there's actually no color on the rock, so nothing was disturbed by the picture taking. And that is what you'll see when you come in from Iron Gate toward Clifton Forge.
We're here with Jeff Bartley, whose Memory Made Tangible is the second part of the exhibit in the gallery this time. And the first one I want to ask about is this Bar Harbor Lighthouse.
We went to Maine this last summer, or actually it was in fall, and I had always wanted to go to Acadia because my wife's father had a beautiful photograph of the Bass Harbor Lighthouse. So we got there, and it was not at all what he had done. He had photographed from the other side. There's no other side. So I stood on the other side because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and we walked away disappointed. So the next day, we're still up in Acadia, and I look closely, and there's a tiny little path on the other side. So I go down this path, which takes you to a rock field, which I could not believe. Now, I'm a month away from getting my knee replaced. I am scrambling down these rocks, carrying my tripod and my camera, and I get down and I try to find the correct angle. I got 1 foot in the ocean, I got 1 foot on the most mossy rock I can find, and I stood there, and there were about 15 other photographers around me, and I waited for the sun to hit it just right, and I made the photograph. Well, when I got back home, I said, that's got to be black and white. So I switched it over to black and white, and I love it. My wife, on the other hand, preferred the color one, so we have a color one of those at our house.
All of these photographs have wonderful stories, but I wish you'd tell me a little bit about Time to Leave.
Badlands National Park, I've been there 5 times. I'm going to go at least 5 more times. It is my favorite park to photograph at this point. I've only been to Yosemite once, so I'll get back to that. But we're out there and we're just photographing the wildlife, some of the dunes, and all of a sudden the light shifted, the color shifted, and this storm is coming in hard. So, not being stupid, but being foolish, I get close to the car, which of course is going to act like a lightning rod, and I set up for one last picture. And luckily, when I made that photograph, the lightning struck. Couldn't have been luckier. This is not skill, this is luck.
I know you and Chuck both have images of the shops, the old C&O shops, and they're both different. So let me get you to talk about these 3 pieces right here.
The Rockbridge Camera Club, under Chuck's encouragement, came over to photograph the shops twice. At least I was there twice. And they would walk around and I would walk away. For some reason, I like to be by myself in the silence so I can see things. When I saw the Gone Not Forgotten photo, it just struck me as really, really sad, because the first train ride I was ever on came through Clifton Forge. My grandparents took me up to Stanton, put me on the train. We went out to Minnesota, but we came through Clifton Forge, and it has always been interesting to me. And I'm like every other young man in the world, trains are exciting. So when I got in there and I saw that empty, open expanse, it just crushed me. So I had to photograph it, but I couldn't photograph it so it looked sad. I wanted to show that it was still important, that it made an impact on people, and that's why I titled it Gone, Not Forgotten.
It has almost a churchy feel to me. And I know part of that may be the arch windows, but the way you've worked the light in that one, I just feel like I've gone to church when I see this piece.
Now this one, in color, it would not work. Years ago, when I was a teacher, one of the things they always talked about was, in photography, if you photograph in color, it looks like a stage play. If you could photograph in black and white, you're going to make an impact. And so I thought this needs to have an impact. Same with the Long Abandoned. I love this because everybody that teaches photography talks about leading lines and talk about leading lines. Everything, it takes you straight down the middle and there's nothing there. It's just hollow. And I think it just says a lot, and I really, really, I like that. And I liked it enough that I turned it upside down.
Funny how different that makes it.
It still has the leading lines, but to me, once you turn it upside down, you see, it's just, you could almost put just a mirror down and get the same impact. It was, I was really excited about that one.
Okay.
I'm taking the same photo and just turning it upside down. Why? But
So that we
it
can
was
be
important
there
to me.
with you, be inside your head.